Welcome to Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
A not good Cal team dominated Virginia on Wednesday night. The writing is officially on the wall, unfortunately. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. Now, I'm not denigrating that Cal team. They won the game and they played well in that game. Virginia made them look like world beaters, but that Cal team, let's be fair and be honest, that beat Virginia like a drum Wednesday night, Thursday morning for a lot of us, obviously, those who live on the East Coast of the U.S. Eastern Time Zone. That's not a good Cal team right now. They had lost 6 of 7 coming in. They're going to lose a bunch more before the season's over. And just again, being blunt, I mean, that's a team that's going to struggle this year. But they dominated Virginia. They got to the foul line 33 times. They held Virginia to 6 makes at the rim. And I'm thinking that maybe the last few holdouts. The folks who send me emails, questioning why I'm down on this year's team and writing at length numerous times about the coaching search because Ron Sanchez is not going to be the coach full time after the season's over. Maybe those folks are starting to finally get the message. Um, this Cal team had won once since Thanksgiving going into Wednesday night, and that was in a guarantee game. Jacksonville State, I think it was. And they beat Virginia by 14. They led by double digits for 16 minutes in the second half. Virginia cut it to 9 a couple of times, so it wasn't like Virginia ever got close after getting down double digits. The writing is on the wall. Um, the hard thing for me to figure out now is how this Virginia team beat Villanova in Baltimore back earlier in the season by 10 points and dominated that game. I mean, Virginia led by double digits in the first half of that one. Villanova made a run to make it relatively close going into halftime, and then the league got right back up to double digits, and Virginia led by, safely in the teens until the final margin was 10. That game was not a 10-point game. Virginia dominated that Villanova team in that game, third game of the season. That Villanova team on Wednesday night beat UConn, and they're now 11-5 on the season. And Ken Pom projects this Villanova team to be 19-12, 12-8 in the Big East. And if that's the case, they're an NCAA tournament team. This Virginia team is projected right now to go 14-17 by Ken Pom and be playing on Tuesday in the ACC tournament. I would never have guessed leaving Baltimore. And Scott German can attest. Scott German went up with me to Baltimore for that game. We covered that game together. Neither one of us would have guessed that Virginia team leaving that day would turn out to be this Virginia team. So how it happened, just again being blunt, the offense sucks. Virginia shot 32.8% against Cal, 19 of 58 overall. They were 7 of 23 from three, 6 of 16 on shots at the rim, and 6 of 19 on mid-range twos. I mean, nothing was working. Nothing was working. And as hard as it is to say, the defense sucks too. I'm sorry to be blunt, but Cal was 12 of 22 at the rim, 27 of 33 at the line. Virginia was whistled for 23 fouls. Now, coming in, Virginia was one of the best teams in the country. You probably heard that on the broadcast in terms of least number of fouls per game, 13.9 per game. So Virginia committed almost 10 fouls more in this game. And going into the game, Virginia opponents had averaged just 12.7 free throw attempts a game. I mentioned 33 free throw attempts for this Cal team. Virginia could not. It was not overly officious officiating crew. It was Virginia just couldn't stop this team, and so out of position, you foul guys. It was a basic beatdown. Cal more athletic, more physical, and they wanted it more as well. So that's the physical part, athletic part, and then the want to part. Unfortunately, not there for the Virginia kids. How our guys did, Andrew Rhodey was good. Continued his recent run of solid play. He had 14 points, 6 assists, 1 turnover in 33 minutes. Quick math, he is averaging, what would that be? He's got just under 14 points a game in his last 3 games, and he's shooting well. He was 6 of 13 from the floor in this one. Jacob Kofi had a good game, only 18 minutes, 12 points, 5 of 9 field goals. It was due to foul trouble. He had 2 first half fouls, but then uh, picked up his third foul at the 19:15 mark of the second half and sat for 8 minutes. Ron Sanchez was just a little cautious there, a little overcautious, let's say. Cal had led 35-32 at the break in this one and had just, had scored 4 points, got a and one, Andre Stojakovic, and then another free throw to make it 39-32 in the opening 45 seconds. Um, the game was still, they were still touching each other at that point, right? By the time Kofi got back in with 11:23 to go, it was a 15-point game and the game was over. Um, uh, to point something out that's should be obvious, but I look at things like plus minus. Plus minus is the reflection of the score of the game when you're in the game. Kofi was the only Virginia player with a positive plus minus on line. He was plus four. The Virginia outscored Cal by four, plus four, when Kofi was on the floor. Um, Other guys, Elijah Saunders had the oddest double-double you'll ever see, 11 points and 10 rebounds, but the 11 points came with one made field goal. He was 1 for 8 from the floor, but he was 8 for 8 at the line. Ishan Sharma, the freshman who is being groomed to be a backup point guard, he was recruited as a perimeter shooter, made a couple threes. In fact, he made three threes in this game. Had 9 points, 3 of 7 from three-point range, 2 assists, no turnovers, 25 minutes. We'll talk about how he got 25 minutes in a second. Um, Blake Buchanan, 6 points, 5 rebounds in 17 minutes, 1 of 5 field goal. He made four free throws, 4 of 4 at the foul line. 6 and 5. I mean, for some reason, I keep thinking Jason Kane when I think of Blake Buchanan. If you're a longer term Virginia basketball fan, you'll remember Jason Kane from the Dave Lato years. And he may have played a year for Tony Bennett too. I don't remember right off, but Kane was a guy that eventually played himself into being a decently productive guy over time. He wasn't a highly regarded recruit, if you remember. Blake Buchanan was a highly regarded recruit. He was a four-star who chose Virginia over Gonzaga, and he's from Idaho. I mean, just pretty much he's right there, right? Um, just across the Washington Idaho border. Um, that 18 points and 7 rebounds. Remember that second game of his freshman season against Florida and Charlotte? You see, when he put those numbers up, I'm thinking, man, we're all thinking, man, this kid, look at this kid. He's 6 points and 5 rebounds is pretty much his average since. So he's not progressed, unfortunately. That's a coaching staff thing. You got to think. I mean, Isaac McNeely, I get a lot of emails from people who will say things along the lines of, "Why does he play so much?" He's not good with the ball. He pretty much is a one-trick pony. He can shoot threes, and that's about it. And I usually don't write back to say, "Oh, I can't believe you say that. He's the team's leading scorer." Because I kind of see it too, but I don't want to. I don't want to agree because he's the team's leading scorer. 12.3 points a game going into the game against Cal. Just 3 points, 1 of 8 shooting, 1 of 4 from three. Missed the front end of a 1-and-1 that would have gotten the game down to from double digits to single digits again. 37 minutes in this game. He had 3 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, and a turnover, a steal, and 2 personal fouls. You got to get more out of 37 minutes from your leading scorer than that. Even if if he's not making shots, doing other stuff. He did nothing else. So the critics, you send me the emails. You're right. You're right. Tate Murray started, got 19 minutes, made a three, had a rebound and 2 turnovers. That's not a lot for 19 minutes. Anthony Robinson, 4 second half minutes with Kofi on the bench, nice and one and a rebound. That's not much. And speaking of barely there, this one takes the cake. TJ Power, the former five-star recruit, the guy who played for a year at Duke before transferring out, he got 12 minutes off the bench, which I did not realize. I've noted this in my post-game story. I didn't realize he'd gotten 12 minutes until I looked at the box score. That's how unnoticeable he was, right? Um, in 12 minutes, he had one missed shot, one rebound, an assist, and a turnover, and a personal foul. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing. And then we get to Day Ames. We can now say is officially in the doghouse. He started 11 games at point this season. In the last three, he's seen his minutes dramatically diminished. He got 4 minutes off the bench in this one, and the last couple were the garbage time minutes. You gotta remember he averaged 10.3 points on 45% shooting from the floor and 56% shooting from three in his first six starts. And now he got 10 minutes, excuse me, 9 minutes against NC State, 10 minutes against Louisville, 4 minutes against Cal. I think it's a fair question whether he's going to even be with the program here in a few days. So we'll have to see about that. That frustration with Christian Bliss is bubbling to the surface with the UVA basketball program. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. Word leaking out from inside the program is that the coaching staff is frustrated with redshirt freshman guard Christian Bliss, who's yet to suit up for a game this season after suffering a foot injury back in the preseason. Now, officially, no, we're not hearing any of that frustration in public. Um, it's to a point where Ron Sanchez, the interim coach, when he was asked about Bliss on his weekly Zoom ACC teleconference on Monday, he came across as trying to be like sounding like he was understanding. But it doesn't take much to read between the lines. Here's the quote that he gave in response to a question about Bliss. Right now, Christian has the opportunity to step on the floor in practice. He's just not feeling good enough to get on the floor. That's a player decision. We as coaches aren't going to force him to get up if he says that my foot is hurting me and I don't feel like he can perform at the level I want to. That's practically war and peace on this topic because in the last few weeks, every time Sanchez would be asked about Christian Bliss and his status, he would, say day to day. After the loss to Louisville on last Saturday, he said, "I have no update on Bliss." I mean, so he's, quickly dismissed it and moved on. And then you get all those words there from Sanchez explaining the situation. I mean, going back into it, basically he says that Bliss is he's saying in his mind he's ready to get back out there and practice, but he's just not. Um, Sanchez could use the help. Day Ames is in the doghouse for some reason, leaving Virginia with Andrew Rohde as the option at point guard. Ishan Sharma, a perimeter guy, is the backup point guard. Not the best situation. Virginia, you might remember, lost Jalen Worley before the season. He was a Florida State point guard that decided then to just transfer out after Tony Bennett left. And now Worley's committed to Gonzaga, where he'll play next season. Um, the backstory on Bliss was a good one. He bypassed his senior year of high school last year, decided to enroll early at UVA. He was able to enroll early, which is interesting too. He gave up his senior year of high school to go to college. Not everybody can do that. He decided that it would be more valuable to his development to be running the scout team going against Reese Beekman every day than it would be to play more high school basketball. And, kind of admire that, right? Um, then that plan got cut short when Bliss suffered an ankle injury that eventually required surgery during last season. So you saw him on crutches on the sidelines an awful lot during the ACC part of last season. Um, but coming into this season, he figured heavily into the plans. There was a lot of talk about maybe this kid starts at point guard for this team. So then he had the foot injury. He's been out of he's been out of his boot on the foot since mid-November. So that's almost 2 months now. It's just not playing, just not even practicing. So more from Sanchez. We'll continue to nurse him. Our doctors have done a fantastic job with him, he says. It's a decision that he has to feel good enough and comfortable enough and confident with his foot in order to get on the floor. Um, Ask a follow-up on whether doctors are cleared. Sanchez said he would have to address that to the training staff. He said, "I think right now we've done everything we could. This is more of a player feeling. He doesn't feel healthy, then he's not." I will say, I didn't write this in the column, but I'll say this out loud here that the frustration that has gotten to me is that there's a feeling that Bliss has read the situation with this UVA basketball team as this season is a lost season, and he's going to sit out so that he can apply for a medical red shirt and transfer out and have 4 years left on his college clock. I don't know that I can argue with that on his part. This is a lost season for this Virginia program, and so yeah, I don't know that I can say anything bad there, but yeah, definitely that's an issue between him and the coaching staff. I don't know. Maybe if the kid plays, maybe the season isn't the lost season that it looks like right now. But I'm not sure. The second coming of Ty Jerome, I don't know that would save this team this year, unfortunately. So, but that's the situation, unfortunately, and the stalemate I just assume is going to continue. Ron Sanchez has a day-day Ames problem. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. Sanchez halfway through his interim season. It's going to be his one and done season, unfortunately. He still doesn't know what he has in the backcourt, and it's because he has himself a day-day Ames problem. Ames has started 11 games at point guard, but the 6-1 transfer from Kansas State has been on the bench the last three games. Actually started the NC State game, was taken out at the 10-minute mark after having played 9 minutes of that first half. Didn't get back in the game after that. He played 10 minutes then against Louisville, 4 minutes against Cal. Um, with him getting limited minutes off the bench, that's leaving Virginia with a point guard by committee, led by Andrew Rohde, who's been putting up good numbers of late. He's averaging 13.7 points a game in his last three. But let's be honest, we're just kind of waiting for Rohde to have another tough stretch. Before these last three games, he had a 5 game stretch where he averaged 6.2 points, 2.6 assists, 2.8 turnovers, shot in the mid 30s, which was more reminiscent of what he did last year when he shot in the 20s, upper 20s from the field and 3 points. And then he averaged 4.3 points, 2.7 assists. Rohde's a streaky player, and hopefully he's overcome that. But even just this season, we saw a long stretch where he didn't play well. Right now, he's playing well, and Virginia's still not playing well as a team. That could portend some bad things if something happens and he goes downhill because he's the guy right now at the point. Tane Murray is getting the starts in the place of Ames. We haven't seen much from him of late. Um, 10 points in his last three games in 70 minutes of playing time. Ishan Sharma is getting more minutes and he's looking good. He was recruited as a perimeter shooter. He's been getting minutes as a backup point guard, got 25 against Cal, had three threes. Um, and so, we can hope that that can continue to develop. Isaac McNeely has been disappointing if you consider, I mean, not just the 3 points in 37 minutes, one of eight shooting in the Cal loss, but even, I mean, he's the leading scorer on this team, right? 12.3 points a game. But I mean, his numbers are pretty much what they were last year. Last year, he averaged 12.3 points a game. He still can't get to the rim and do anything. He's still a one-trick pony, and I think that's a reflection on the coaching staff not developing him. He's still a guy who can shoot threes, and that's about it. What Cal did, and Cal not a good defensive team, Cal not a good team in general, was able to basically say, all right, we're not going to let you beat us from three. They forced him into dribbling into inside of the 3 point line, and he's not adept at that. So he's not going to do anything if he does. That's the problem. So what do you do? Virginia is 8-7 with a 100 plus net rating. I mean, this is not a team that's going to be anywhere in the postseason. Probably losing on Tuesday in the ACC tournament. And if they don't lose on Tuesday, they'll lose on Wednesday in the ACC tournament. Um, reasons for that, one and two are this team can't play defense, can't rebound the ball. But the bigger issue to me is reason number three, the backcourt. And why Ames is in the doghouse is a mystery. One thing that Sanchez said after the Louisville game was that a reason for Ames, being relegated to the bench right now is he needs to do better taking care of the ball because Sanchez is trying to emphasize the reduction in turnovers that had been plaguing this team at times this season. So to say that though is weird because when you look at the stats, turnovers aren't a problem for him. He's averaging 1.3 a game. I mean, in context, Rhodey's averaging over two a game. McNeely's averaging right at two a game. And his turnover percentage is actually lower than Rhodey's. It's right where McNeely's is. It's lower than Tane Murray's. The issue isn't sloppiness. It's that he's not a creator as a point guard. He's basically a 6-1 shooting guard. And, I mean, that is what it is. He's averaging only 1.7 assists per game. And he's good at getting to the rim, and he's good in catch and shoot threes. He's a 6'1", like I said, a 6'1" shooting, a playmaking shooting guard, playmaking for himself shooting guard. He's a square peg in a round hole. I think this is a recruiting miss, and that's all I can say there. Virginia went for the most talented guy they can get, not a guy who fit the system. The problem for this Virginia team then is, if you're going to bench him because he doesn't fit your style of play, he's the only guy on this roster who can create his own shot. This is a team that's highly dependent upon. I mean, the whole offensive system is a uh, system that relies on the screens setting everything up. So it's not something that you have a point guard who breaks down his defender off the dribble, draws a double team or draws help defense, and then because of the help defense can find a guy either in the corner or in the post or at the rim, and that guy can do some stuff with it. It's an old school system, but it's clear that this team is not built to do that. This roster is not built to do that, and so you've got the one guy who can create a shot sitting on the bench. Um, And Ames is at his best, as we've seen. When if you've when you've paid attention to him playing, it's been you haven't been able to lately because he's not been playing much. But he's at his best when there's space. He's at his best, running off of the high pick and roll at the above the top of the key, um, getting into the lane, using the space in the lane. He's actually pretty good around the rim in those situations, and he's good on those catch and shoot threes, like I mentioned, when the ball moves around. If we're going to keep playing the same offense, yeah, sit him because he's not going to fit into this offense. But who else is going to create any shots? That's going to be the problem. Um, I see Day-Day Ames as being capable of being a double-digit scorer somewhere else in Power Five, just not at Virginia, unfortunately. Tony Bennett didn't do his buddy Ron Sanchez any favors. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. Scott German and I teamed up on a column. Scott's byline is on it, but we were working together on this one a good bit. Scott, with the impetus, um, talking about Tony Bennett and how this season is reflecting poorly on Ron Sanchez, but maybe maybe the reflection should go somewhere else. Um, that blowout loss to Cal, just the latest reminder that Sanchez, fair or not, will not be the head coach uh, when UVA gets a full-time head coach sometime in March, early April at the latest. His longtime buddy Tony Bennett's the reason why this is going to be the case. Remember the thinking at the beginning of this season was that for Sanchez to have that interim tag removed, he was going to have to lead this team to the NCAA tournament. And at the time, I mean, you look at what Virginia got off the transfer portal, they got some good talent coming in, um, largely because of Sanchez. He was the lead recruiter on the guys who came in. The media, the ACC media picked Virginia to finish fifth in the ACC. Finishing fifth would get you, 20, 21, 22 wins. You'd be in the NCAA tournament. Um, as a reality that March Madness is not going to be in the travel itinerary started to sink in. It's been beaten into us the last few weeks. We've moved on from thinking, all right, NCAA tournament might have been a little high. Let's look at it more in terms of Sanchez and what he's done with his team. It's a younger team. We'll be fair there. Base it less on the win-loss record in an NCAA tournament, more on how this team develops during the season, grows, right? And Sanchez's ability to be a part of it. Well, growth isn't happening. The best win this team has and probably will have is Villanova early in the season when Villanova did not look good. I mean, Villanova started 2-3 that with the loss of Virginia included in that. And now Villanova has won 9 of its last 11, is sitting at 11-5. Looks like an NCAA tournament team. Virginia beat that Villanova team soundly. The final margin was 10 points, but Virginia led that game in the second half by double digits almost the entire way. Hard to figure now that that Virginia team and that Villanova team have gone in dramatically different directions since. This team is not better than it was then. That win portended a Virginia team that was going to win 20 or 21 or 22 games, get into the NCAA tournament. They're not there now. So if your thinking is you evaluate a coach based on improvement as the season progresses, hmm, that's not looking good either for Mr. Sanchez. Now, the point that Scott was making, I think is a fair one. It's hard to fault Ron Sanchez. He did not sign up for this. Now, Scott and I have both been writing since Sanchez returned to Virginia, the summer of 2023, so now a year and a half ago, 2 years ago by the calendar year numbers, that he gave up the job at Charlotte. He did well there. He won 22 games his last year at Charlotte in 2022, 2023. He didn't give up that head coaching job to come to Virginia to be an assistant to make less money without the thinking being in place that he would eventually be in position to be the head coach. But it wasn't. Scott's point is, it wasn't the way it ended up happening. There's one thing of, all right, we're gonna set things up. In a few years, Ron, you're the guy. Tony quit 2 weeks before the season. Um, that's not a plan necessarily. I mean, we may find out at some point in the future that Tony was upfront with him when he hired him in 2023 to come back, and that the plan all along was for Tony to quit right before the season, but I doubt that's going to be the case. Um, the abrupt departure is what has put Sanchez and everybody, the players and the other assistant coaches, in this bind. And for the guys left behind, you can see it. I mean, in the coaches too. The picture I used on the website associated with the story, taken by Mike Inglesar, great photographer, long time UVA guy, founder of the Saber way back in the day. Um, the picture from Mike, I mean, Sanchez has got one of those 1,000-foot stairs. And this is on the sidelines at a recent UVA game. And you see the body language from the players after Andrew Rohde, got beat to the basket on a layup by Cal in the second half. His shoulders slump and he's throwing the ball in bounds, and you can tell. I mean, the guys, it's tough. It's tough for everybody. Um, Scott is one who will be very critical of in-game coaching adjustments or lack thereof. I always make the point, and no offense to any of those guys, they're all much more knowledgeable basketball guys than I, but uh, they have all coached in this system, the Tony Bennett basketball system, inherited from his dad, Dick Bennett, tweaked and modified a bit, but none of those guys have experience, reasonable, significant experience outside of the Dick Bennett, Tony Bennett tree. They know one way of basketball. They know it well, but they know one way of basketball. So it's hard to expect anything different out of this group. You're not going to see all of a sudden that they're going to start running the ball up and down the floor. These guys don't coach that way. Um, and so, Tony Bennett basketball is what they know. Tony Bennett's not around to run it. Um, and you can kind of see. And what do we have now? Poor guard play, awful defense, no identity. And we're in mid-January. I mean, it's January 10th as I'm recording this. And I feel bad for Sanchez. His post-game press conferences, he's got to say the same thing. We're going to, keep working at it. We're going to try to get there. But it's obvious. The writing's on the wall. This is what we got. And it's not fair to Ron Sanchez that's working out this way. And for all the love we got from Tony Bennett, we have Tony Bennett to thank for how this season's going.